Hello, and welcome to another episode of In Just 1 Minute or So. Today we're going to talk about trauma-informed workplaces. And this is based on a little book about trauma-informed workplaces. This is written by Nathan Gerbrandt, Grieser, and Vicky Enns. Let's jump in. Trauma-informed workplaces understand the presence of trauma, acknowledge the role of trauma can play in a person's life, and promote work environments that support the individual and collective well-being of all staff and clients. They create a sense of belonging, of connection, and safety through their attitudes, policies, and practices. As a result, organizations that are trauma-informed are more resilient and better able to achieve their missions. When organizations fail to consider the impact of trauma in their decisions, communications, and interactions with the staff and clients, they risk affecting others in negative and sometimes harmful ways. Words that are meant to inspire may actually be deflating, and unthoughtful decisions or interactions may lead to unintended interpretations. To establish more trauma-informed workplaces, we need to assess and, in some cases, adjust our ways of interacting, making decisions, and communicating. We need to become vigilant about the how. How do we communicate in trauma-informed ways? How do we make decisions from a trauma-informed perspective? Perhaps your organization already embraces trauma-informed principles, and you want to be intentional about helping it remain that way. Or maybe your workplace has room to improve, but you're looking for a place to start. There are 5 key principles that trauma-informed organizations embody: promote awareness, shift attitudes, foster safety, provide choice, and highlight strengths. Let's start from the beginning. What is trauma? The word trauma is associated with many different experiences. These can include distinct threatening or distressing events, such as an accident, war, natural disaster, or devastating losses. Broader and recurring experiences of intergenerational trauma, systematic racism, and persistent doses of fear and stress within negative relationships or toxic work environments can also have a traumatic effect on people. Trauma occurs when a person or group is confronted with a threat to themselves or others, and that threat overwhelms their coping resources, evoking responses of intense helplessness, distress, or fear for personal safety. The pervasiveness of trauma and its widespread impact on a person's life may be hidden under physical, emotional, or behavioral systems that don't get recognized for what they are. At first glance, it is not always clear that someone's current perspective or life choices are being influenced by a past traumatic experience. It can be helpful to think of trauma as a wound, often an invisible wound, that requires active attention. If not recognized or directly attended to, the injury can deepen and become multi-layered, which may lead to deepening symptoms and, in some situations, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It is important to note that the perception of any event is unique to each individual who experiences it. For example, 2 people may witness the same tragedy but experience very different effects, with one being affected by lasting trauma and another not. The specific impacts can vary in type and intensity, manifesting across multiple areas of a person's life in ways that might not be seen connected to the original experience. Physical manifestations of trauma can include body fatigue, difficulty sleeping, and an exaggerated startle response. It may show up cognitively through responses such as negative and self-critical belief, difficulties with concentration, and recurring memories. Fluctuating and intense sensations, heightened anxiety, and helpless fear can dominate one's emotions. Relationships can also be challenging for a person impacted by trauma because they may have difficulty trusting others and experience a shattered sense of healthy boundaries. Trauma can also affect a person spiritually, resulting in a loss of meaning, purpose, and even connection with one's culture or community. All traumatic experiences have ripple effects across relationships and throughout the wider community. What happens to one individual will affect how they relate to others and how others relate to them. In this way, trauma is not just an individual experience. We can't always prevent people from experiencing trauma, but we can be courageous in our efforts to recognize and talk about it. It is through genuine human connection and compassion that the far reaching impacts of trauma can be transformed from isolation and fear into resilience and growth. And that's all for today. Thank you for joining and see you in the next episode.